Hello everyone, welcome back to LEARNOIKONOMIA. In this particular video, we will be discussing a very new topic. Here we will be familiarizing with public debt. And in this video, we will be understanding the meaning of public debt, and also we will be discussing the classification of public debt. Now, let's come to the meaning of public debt. What is public debt? As we all know, modern governments need to borrow from different sources when they experience some financial crunch, or when they see that their current revenue is less than their expenditure which they need to incur on various types of activities. Thus, what happens is that there will be some kind of public debt. That is, the government see that their income is something which is less than their expenditure. So public debt actually refers to loans or some kind of money incurred by the government so as to finance various kinds of activities, especially developmental activities, when the other source of public income fail to meet their requirements of the government. And in a wider sense, we could see that the proceeds of such borrowing constitute public income. Also, it's very important to see that since public debt has to be repaid along with the interest from whom it is borrowed, it does not constitute any kind of income. Rather, it constitutes public expenditure. We all know that when we go to the bank to take some loan, we will be compelled to pay some more money to the bank apart from what the principal amount, that is not the interest. Though we take only the principal amount as the loan amount, we will be compelled to repay loan amount, that is the principal amount, plus some interest. So we will be paying more than what we take from the bank, right? So this is applicable to government as well. When government takes loans either from banks or from individuals or from countries or international institutions like IMF, World Bank, etc. What it does is that it pays not only the principal amount but also interest. So in this case, public borrowing, like in the case of taxes, is not a compulsory source of public income. Here it is very much important to understand the word compulsion. Here the compulsion is not applied to public borrowing except in the case of certain exceptional cases of borrowing. Now, having understood what is public debt, let's deal with the classification of public debt. There have been the various kinds of classifications of public debt offered by different people. So we could classify debt according to the maturity of the debt, according to the type of the issuer, according to the location of the debt, or according to the marketability of debt, and so on. Coming to the maturity of the debt, we can classify debt into two, that is short-term debt and long-term debt. When we say short-term debt, it means that the debt that will be maturing in less than 5 years, and it can be a matter of weeks also. And in the case of long-term debt, this is something that will mature in more than 5 years, or it can it can go on to an indefinite period. So this is how we will define debt on the basis of maturity. Now, coming to the type of issuer, here we can divide, or we can classify public debt into two. First is that we can classify public debt as direct obligations, or we can classify public debt on the basis of contingent obligations. So if it is direct obligations, the debt here is issued and backed by the government. But whereas in the case of contingent obligation, here the debt is issued typically by the government, a corporation, or other quasi-governmental body. But at the same time, this could be seen that it is guaranteed by the government. And now, in the case of revenue obligation, what happens is that this is backed by the anticipated revenue from the government on commercial enterprise, such as high toll highways, public utilities, transit systems, etc. Now, on the basis of location of debt, Here we can classify that into internal debt and external debt. Internal debt is something which is held within the government's jurisdiction, that is the government is borrowing from within the country. When the government borrows from within the country, then it is known as the internal debt. Now, what is external debt then? External debt is something that is borrowed by the government from external sources, or if the government of India is borrowing from IMF, then it can be considered to be a foreign jurisdiction, because it is borrowed from outside the border of India. So that is known as a foreign debt or external debt. Now, according to the marketability of debt, we can classify that into negotiable securities and non-negotiable securities. When it is negotiable securities, here it is marketable, something which is marketable. Whereas in the case of non-negotiable security, it is of low denomination, like USA bonds and all. That is it. Okay. Apart from this, it is very much important to see that we can classify that into several other kinds, like funded debt, non-funded debt, voluntary debt, compulsory loans, redeemable loans, irredeemable debt, productive, reproductive or unproductive debt, or deadweight debt, etc. So let's deal with these one by one. Now, coming to the internal and external that we have already discussed this. So anyway, we will be touching upon this aspect too in detail here. So here the sums on to the citizens and institutions is known as internal debt. We have already discussed that when it is internal debt, the government is borrowing from within the country. Either it is borrowing from the individual or the citizens of the country, or it is borrowing from various institutions which are located within the country. So then it is known as the internal debt. And if it is external debt, the government owes to the foreign organizations or foreign institutions or foreign nations, because the government is borrowing from these foreign entities. So it is known as the external debt. Now, internal debt is floated in the capital markets within the country, whereas that is the such debt is something that is subscribed by the individuals or the institutions of the country. But in the case of external debt, and this is floated in the foreign capital market, that is which is located outside the country and by the government from foreign nationals or foreign governments or international financial institutions. That is, if it is internal debt, the government is borrowing from the people or from various institutions which are located within the country. But if it is external debt, the government borrows either from the foreign governments or from the international financial institutions or from the other kind of foreign entities. So this is a basic difference between internal and external debt. Now coming to the short term and long term debt, this is also we have already discussed. Just looking into the details, you could see that the loans are classified on the basis of duration into, or on the basis of maturity into short-term debts and long-term debts, or short-term loans and long-term loans. Okay, here most government debt which is held in the short-term, these are interest-bearing securities such as treasury bills or the ways and means advances. Here the maturity period of treasury bill is something which is usually 90 days or something, and the government borrows money from such period from the central bank of the country to cover the temporary deficit in the budget. Only for long-term loans the government comes to the public. That is mainly for development purposes. These kinds of long-term loans are taken by the government usually, and this will extend to a period of more than 5 years. That is the usual thing. Now coming to the funded and non-funded or floating debt. This is a new concept, right? We haven't touched upon this. So let's understand how can we differentiate between funded and unfunded debt. Here the funded debt is something which could be considered as a loan which is repayable after a long period of time, and this would be usually more than a year, and thus the funded debt is considered to be a long-term debt. Also, since the repayment of such kind of debt which is maintained by the government, there is kind of separate fund. The debt is known as a funded debt. Whereas in the case of unfunded debt or unfunded loans, these are repayable within a short period, usually less than a year, and it is the unfunded because no separate fund is maintained by the government for the repayment of these kinds of loans. Since repayment of unfunded debt is made out of the public revenue, it is considered to be a floating debt, and unfunded debt is a short-term debt. So this is a basic difference. First is funded debt is something that is considered to be a debt which involves a long period of time, and also the government maintains a separate fund for the repayment of loans, and also it is considered to be a long-term debt. Now, in the case of unfunded debt, there is no separate fund constituted separate fund maintained by the government to repay these loans, and also it is considered to be a short-term debt. These are the basic two differences between the funded and unfunded or floating debt. Now, coming to the voluntary and compulsory loans. Here, in the case of a democratic country, a democratic government raises loans from the nationals of a country on a voluntary basis. Thus, the loans given to the government by the people on their own will and ability are known as voluntary loans. So, there is no compulsion, there is no element of compulsion in these kinds of voluntary loans. Now, examples can be public debt by nature is usually considered to be voluntary. But during emergencies like war, natural calamities, etc., the government forces the nationals of the country or the citizens of the country to make some kind of lending, and these loans are known as compulsory loans or forced loans. So, if the government is, if it is given to the will of the people, if it is optional to the people, if somebody can voluntarily contribute, then it is known as voluntary loans. And if there is any kind of compulsion or force issued by the government on the people so as to lend to the government, then it is known as compulsory loans. So these are the basic differences. Now coming to the redeemable and irredeemable debt, and this is very important as far as as far as public economics is concerned, and also for a developing economy, this it is very much important to understand between the redeemable and irredeemable debt, the difference between the two. Now coming to the redeemable debt, this is a debt which the government promises to pay off at a future date. Okay, after the maturity period, the government pays the amount to the lenders. Thus, it is considered to be redeemable because some kind of terminable loans are these kinds of loans. Okay. Now, in the case of irredeemable debt, then the government does not make any promise about the repayment of the principal amount, although the interest is paid on a regular basis to the lenders. Now, for the most obvious reasons, redeemable public debt is preferred because at least some kind of promise is given, right? We can assure that the government will be paying us the amount today or tomorrow. The principal amount will be paid today or tomorrow. Now, if irredeemable loans taken by the government are taken into consideration, the society will have to face a consequence of the burden of the perpetual debt. That's it. Because you are just paying the interest, you are paying the interest, you are paying the interest, and you are paying the interest. Just this process will go on. But it is very much important to note that the principal amount is still there, which is still unpaid, which means that you have to pay the amount today or tomorrow. That is for sure, that you have to do it for sure, right? So as a result, if you are telling that I'll pay it tomorrow, then you are actually imposing a kind of burden on the future generation as well. So this redeemable debt, whether it is in the name of developmental activities or it is in the name of financing a war or natural calamity or whatever it may be, irredeemable debt is not considered to be it is not considered to be a good option. That's it. Now coming to the productive or unproductive debt or deadweight debt. This is also very much important to understand as far as developing economy is concerned. Okay. So, on the criteria of the purpose of loans, public debt is classified into productive and unproductive debt. Here, the public debt is productive when it is used for income earning enterprises, or productive debt refers to the loan raised by the government for increasing the productive power of the economy. A productive debt is something that creates sufficient assets by which it is eventually repaid. That's it. If loans by the government are spent on building railways, development of mines, industries, irrigation works, etc., then the income of the government will increase ultimately, or gradually it will increase anyway. Productive loans thus add to the total productive capacity of the economy. So this is the productive debt, that is the debt incurred by the government so as to finance any kind of activities that will generate some kind of income either today or tomorrow. This is not the productive debt. Now coming to the words of Finnish, as a very famous person or person in the arena of public economics. Finnish has got many contributions to his credit. He has contributed a lot to the arena of public finance. He has defined public expenditure, taxation policies, etc. So let's deal with that. How he is trying to look into the difference between the productive debt or unproductive debt. Okay, now he says that productive debt or reproducible loans which are fully covered by the assets of equal or greater value. The source of the interest is income from the ownership of these as railways, irrigation works, etc. Now public debt is considered to be unproductive when it is spent on purposes which do not yield any kind of income to the government, that refugee rehabilitation, famine relief work, then fund given to the people who are the victims of natural calamities, etc. So here we are very sure that it won't create any kind of economic activities and it won't generate any kind of income. These are just unilateral payments to some section of people, one-sided payments to one certain section of people, and it is to finance this payment the government is incurring these expenses. So loans for financing war may be regarded as unproductive loans. Instead of creating any productive assets in the economy, the unproductive loan do not add to any productive capacity of the economy. So that is why unproductive debts are known as deadweight debts. Now, so having understood the meaning and the classification of debt, let's understand what are the causes for the increase in the public debt. So as we have seen that there are unproductive debt which occur as a result of war, preparation of war, etc. So war and preparation of war can be a causes of increase in public debt. The government may incur unproductive debt. Now, social obligation. Social obligation in the sense that if the government is to finance some certain category of the people in order to increase their social welfare, then the government will give them if it is old age people or if it is school going children, then government will increase pension given to the old age people, or the government will increase the scholarship amount given to the school going children, etc. So as a result, in order to meet the social obligations of the government incur some kind of expenses so as to increase the welfare of the public, right? So yes, this is known as the social obligations of the government. So in order to meet the social obligations, the government incur in certain areas some kind of expense, and as a result, if the government finds that its income is less than its expenses, then it has to borrow so as to finance these kinds of expenses. So as a result, there will be public debt. Now, economic development and deficit. Economic development we have already seen. If there is, especially with respect to the developing economies, which doesn't have ample amount of fund in their hand, it has to borrow from somewhere, either from internal sources or from external sources. Anyway, in order to finance the development of developing countries, it has to borrow. So creating development, creating economic development through increasing public debt and deficit. Okay, and employment generation. In order to create new employment opportunities, there will be some kind of infrastructural development, and if the government is not able to finance its infrastructural development activities by its income, it will be forced to borrow some kind of amount either from within the country or from outside, leading to public debt. Now, controlling inflation. This is also another arena in which government deal with the public debt. So we know that for controlling inflation, in order to control the money supply with the public, the government actually what it does is that it will reduce its expenditure, right? This is what the government does. Now coming to the fighting depression. So the same thing happens here too. in the case of fighting depression, in the case of Keynesian theory and all, we have seen that in the 1930s what happens was that even though people had plenty of even though people had plenty of money in their hand, they were not ready to make any kind of investment in the public, especially because they were not very much sure that they will be getting profit, because their MPC was their MEC, the marginal efficiency capital, was very less. This is what they thought, and even though the interest rate was brought to the floor level, these people were not ready to make any kind of investment. So these are the main instances which lead to public debt. So having discussed that, in the upcoming videos we'll cover different theories with respect to public debt and public expenditure and so on. So with that, we end today's video. Please like, share and subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.